welcome to Crisis of Infinite Opinions. I am your host, Honey. To my left is Miranda.
Hi, hello, DinoMightyMiranda, your friendly neighborhood amateur Batman historian.
Below me is Rena.
Hi, I'm Rena. I make way too long videos on way too short a platform.
And Knight.
Hi, my name is Knight the Werewolf Teacher. I am a fake werewolf and real teacher.
Every month we come in here with a new topic that the four of us shall debate on. However, the twist of it all is that one of us is a bizarro who has the wrong take, and it's going to be revealed by the end of the episode. So keep an eye out on who it is and give us your thoughts down below in the comments. Today's topic is about character changes and when is it appropriate to actually make a drastic, radical change to a character.
So I don't really believe in mischaracterization as a concept. I think that generally, because comic books are such a collaborative medium, especially when you're talking about the big two, right? You have characters that are worked on by multiple creative teams, sometimes at the same time, over period like many years, over like the span of many different books. Like, I just don't really believe that there is such a thing as a mischaracterization. I think there's just different versions of that character. And whether or not you agree with it or like it, that's a matter of opinion and taste. It's not really a matter of...
I think that's the bizarro right there.
In my opinion, that I understand what Miranda is saying, but I would like to compare, which I often do, comics to other mediums that are collaborative or other mediums that require a lot of reinterpretation. So the comparison I always do is Sherlock. And you can definitely mischaracterize Sherlock Holmes. You can have reinterpretations of it, and Miranda is right that it is an opinion, but like the concept of mischaracterization is always like an opinion-based thing. So I think that, personally speaking, that writers have like carte blanche to rewrite characters how they want, and I have carte blanche to make fun of them endlessly for it when they do it poorly. And I think it might be a good idea to stay consistent with previous writers just so that you can stay safe. But I also think that if you want to try an idea, you can. But you should be always in dialogue with previous writers. You can disagree with an interpretation of a character, but you definitely shouldn't just use a character as like a tool. We've all had an event where we've seen one of our favorite characters just be used as a body, you know, and that sucks.
I'd also add that it's honestly incredibly disrespectful to the previous writers to basically say, your version of this character was bad, I'm going to do it better. And just like throw away everything that the previous writers had all worked on to do your super special awesome version of this story.
I would push back on that, because I don't think that's what a writer is doing, right? Like, I think that there definitely are writers that do that, but I think that's a case-by-case basis, whereas sometimes a writer is coming in and they have been asked to have a fresh take, or they have pitched a fresh take, and I don't necessarily view that as disrespectful to previous takes, right? Like, there is no one true version of the character. There is only the version that is currently being printed.
For me, I'm kind of on Miranda's side here. That because when I pitched the question, it was kind of, when is it mischaracterization and when is it just additional characterization? When is it character development, right? Because I was thinking particularly about about certain characters. I was thinking about Amanda Waller, who has who has now become one of the main villains of that universe. Adam Strange in Tom King's Strange Adventures, right? And I want to establish there are things I agree with and don't agree with in all of this, right? I know I've seen a lot of complaints about the way that Captain Atom gets treated, that a number of other things. Other characters. Sometimes I think, though, it is also us reevaluating the way that a character acted in the past and how and now looking at them from our lens now, right? I think about Sergeant Steele, right, who had a spy thriller comic book and is now a Wonder Woman villain. And I also think, while I'm sure there are some fans of the spy thriller Sergeant Steele, that it also totally makes sense for this spy character to now be viewed as the bad guy. Some of it is that I think it is looking back and thinking, wait, isn't this wrong?
You inject too much nuance into these conversations, guys.
Yeah, I know, right? I commented that behind the scenes that it's very hard for any of us to actually identify who the bizarro is in any of this, Because we're all too fucking nuanced.
I don't trust comic fans, all right? I don't trust comic fans in a lot of avenues, but I especially don't trust them with this. Because I know for a fact, running through my head are characters that I am so glad a writer just said no to, right? But there's also characters that I'm so upset with their rewriting. And essentially, if I like it as a mischaracterization, and if I don't like it as mischaracterization, and if I do like it, it's character development. And that's the rule. And I feel like that's actually everyone's rule. Like, Hal Jordan used to be like an intelligent guy. And look, I don't particularly love Hal Jordan as a character, but I hate when he's a train wreck in every single aspect of his life, and we're like, but he pilots a ring real good, so we're supposed to like him. Meanwhile, he barrels through and ruins everyone's life. He's like literally a drunk in the 90s. Like, it's just, it turns into like a but why kind of situation compared to the more intelligent Hal Jordan we had before. But that's the version of Hal Jordan that is like being prevalent for the last 40 years. So what am I gonna do? You know?
I don't know. I in terms of whether or not you like it or not, I have to bring up the fact that I just really love the mental image of Hal Jordan taking Carol out on a nice romantic dinner just so he can ask her to co-sign a car loan for him. Normally, I try to cut the writer targets in these videos, but I feel like in a video specifically about writing decisions, I don't think we'll be able to cut any content specifically about like our opinions on the writing decisions by writers.
Which is why I'm going to keep this vague. There's a certain superstar writer who really likes using characters and like completely re-envisioning them, and I'm not a fan. That I realize that made no sense because that's so many writers, but. Can we talk about Rena?
No, I think you got your point across.
I'm actually going to just drop his name.
A very short list of who exactly you could be referring to.
I'm actually going to drop their name because I actually have a positive thing to say about this writer, because I'm assuming you're talking about Tom King, because everyone always talks about Tom King. Danger Street is actually one of the few instances where Tom King's particular choice of writing obscure D-list characters that nobody cares about, so we can have them as audience, as his author insert just dolls to smash at one another, is actually done really well. I have read a decent amount of Creeper, and he actually does a pretty good job of writing Creeper. He the various hodgepodge of random characters that he uses for the story is actually well done, even if most of them are written dramatically out of character. I've read the original Dingbats comic. I've read the original Green Team comics. They do not act like that in their original comics, but he writes them in a way that is actually like, you know what? I'm on board with what you're selling me this time, Tom King. I'm on board with this.
The quality of the writing completely trumps the consistency of the writing, right? Because Honey is talking about really old characters that no one gives a shit about. And because of that, any interpretation about them is fair game. But Honey, being one of the 3 fans of those characters, doesn't yeah, sure, Danger Street is fine. If someone mischaracterized them in a different way, you'd be upset. But the fact of the matter is, like, it is just true that certain characters, some of the best runs you have ever read for a character, is not meaningfully pushing the needle on the interpretation of that character.
And I have to bring this up because you brought this up already, Knight, in your opening statements, but Adam Strange, I've literally just finished today the original Mystery in Space Adam Strange run. That is just an absurd betrayal of character for the guy. Like, there is a real reason to go and make a Strange Adventure style radical takedown of the space pulp adventure genre. It's not with Adam Strange, because he is one of the biggest outliers of that genre.
Oh yeah, no, really. Like, the only reason that he did it with Adam Strange is because Dynamite Comics owns John Carter of Mars.
I would have gone with like Captain Comet. He's actually had villainous stints in his career. He would have made a great person for that type of role.
How much does this story not being within canon of the rest of the other stories for that character matter? Because in all honesty, for me, the only reason why mischaracterization matters is because it can affect future characterization down the line. Mm-hmm. If someone writes an annoying story of your favorite character, who, like, to go back to the Sherlock Holmes example, people writing Sherlock Holmes as a like bad autism representation on the BBC doesn't affect any other interpretation of Sherlock Holmes. It can affect it because it's popular, but like people can easily ignore it. You can't really do that. Hal still gets like filleted for like shit he did in the 80s and 90s, and it's been 40 years, and a lot of writers have done a lot of work to undo that. So like that's my only issue with that. So how do we feel about non-canon stories fucking up your favorite characters?
Oh, I have a huge problem with that. I feel like non-canon stories nowadays are at their worst. Because every black label comic that gets put out, this isn't canon, I'm just writing my own thing, is always just close enough to actual modern canon that you really have to wonder, is this actually non-canon, or do you just want to use this as an excuse to not have fans get upset with you for not paying attention to actual characterization? One of the most interesting cases that really irked me a few years back was the other history of the DC universe, which that is the worst possible naming choice you could have, because for those who don't know, the history of the DC universe was an actual historical encyclopedia that DC put out of the backstories and cool historical details of various comic book characters and worlds in DC. It was an actual history book. And so when a person comes out writing a new book called The Other History of the DC Universe, you'd expect that to also be canon. And I had multiple people come to me thinking that it was actually in canon.
It isn't canon?
I'm the biggest Outsiders fan you're ever going to have. So my gripes are specifically with Book 2 and its criticisms of Katana and their portrayal in the thing, because there are genuine criticism you can make about the racist portrayal of that happens to Katana in that story. For example, Bruce Wayne giving Katana a bookstore as a civilian cover identity, but it's a bookstore that exclusively sells Japanese books. So there's a lot of actual racist stuff you can point out and criticize about Katana's portrayal in the original Outsiders run. Calling out the book for having an Asian character with a mystical weapon, or is that the entire book has a thing where it basically says, no, she's not mystical. Everyone is just racist for thinking my weapon is mystical. This is all really bad. And also, they have a whole scene where she takes Halo out to a music festival, and they then celebrate with champagne. Literally, the first issue of Outsiders, without Batman, literally has Katana refusing to give Halo champagne because she's a minor. Like, this whole film has never actually read Batman and the Outsiders outside of Wikipedia cliff notes, and just uses it to talk about unrelated issues, and just uses that as a blanket thing to criticize the other parts of the industry.
I think this fits into a good discussion about the difference between, like I said before, I think mischaracterization is different because than like reinterpretation. But reinterpretation is you're having a dialogue with the text here, and the thing I hate the most is mischaracterization through ignorance, right? Like, it is. I think it's fair to say that it is unreasonable to request people to read every single installment of a character. Like, if we're specifically talking about writing a character, I think that can be unreasonable, especially for the bigger characters. And it's kind of hard to say what is iconic to a character because it's going to be different for every single person, right? But I think it's different when we're engaging with specific arcs, like the other side of the DC universe, or engaging with specific aspects of the character. Like, if you are specifically talking about reimagining something, you should read the thing. I do not think it is unreasonable to ask that Tom King reads the JLI run to write Human Target. Like, that is a specific run that is specific to those characters. I do not think it is unreasonable to ask for someone to read the Outsiders run to write the other history of the DC universe. And I especially think that you should read a single Talia comic before you decide to make her a sexist, like Islamophobic stereotype. Grant Morrison.
We were talking about outside of canon, and I thought one of those elements is going to be adaptation. Right. And the DC animated universe. So I've talked about my project with Poison Ivy, and part of that has been tracking down when Poison Ivy actually became an eco-terrorist as a character. And that happens. That happens in the DC animated universe. It starts in the Batman the Animated Series. It doesn't hit the comics until 4 years later, in 1996. She only became big after her characterization is given to her in the DC animated universe. Up until that point, she is a sexy supervillain with a poison gimmick. Not a plant gimmick, a poison gimmick. But I also know that the DC animated universe gave us a characterization of the Question that I know Honey hates.
Yes. I despise the DCAU Question. The thing is, I would not be upset with the DCAU version of the Question if literally anybody who has come up to me with a pitch for a Question fanfic, for some reason I get a lot of people who come to me with their various fanfic ideas for comic book characters. I don't know why people like to talk to me about their ideas. Question, every idea they ever come up with is, I want to do a conspiracy theory objectivist story with Question. It's like, have you read any Question book actually written in DC Comics? Not even Ditko's was a conspiracy theorist, really. He was just a weird soapbox for his objectivist ideas.
Yeah, so, I don't know, like, with adaptation, I think if it is physically possible for characterization and, like, fidelity and characterization to matter even less than it does normally, I think in adaptation it somehow matters even less. Because you are taking something from one media and you're translating it into something different. And I think that it's all well and good if, like, they're adapting, like, a certain storyline for them to have a certain amount of character fidelity. But other than that, if it's an original story, I don't really think it, like, I just don't think it's that important, right? Like, I think that there are versions of characters that I enjoy. There's versions of characters that I don't enjoy. There are stories that I enjoy that, like, have a high fidelity to the version of the character that I enjoy, and there's stories that I enjoy that don't have that high fidelity to the characters that I enjoy. I'm not a big fan of, like, the Nolan Batman trilogy. It doesn't do it for me. But do I really have any right to say that it's any less, like, that Batman is any less Batman than any other Batman? No, I don't think I do.
I have to disagree there, because there are a lot of instances where a new writer will be tasked with writing a comic involving some B or C tier character, somebody who does pop up every now and then, but isn't going to be doesn't have their own book a lot of the time, and so they will pull up the most recent example of that character in order to get an example of it. A lot of the time, as a result of it, the most recent example of that character is going to be an Elseworld where they're written out of character, a cartoon where they're getting written out of character, or some movie or other form of adapted media where they get written out of character. And so when they bring that character into this new book that their editor said, hey, we want you to include this character for some, like, cross-promotion stuff we're having with an event, they're going to write them in the out-of-character method that the most recent appearance of that character existed. When an adaptation is adapting a high-ranking character who actually does have regular spot appearances and will survive the character assassination, it's not a problem. Batman is never going to suffer from the character assassination of his movies, really.
But I disagree.
But Booster Gold, Captain Atom, any C-list character, they are dramatically going to suffer all the time.
I disagree, though, entirely. I think that it's not... I don't believe in, like, the idea of, like, character assassination, because I think that's a very deliberate act, right? That's a writer setting out to write a character entirely different.
All right, it's character manslaughter.
If someone is keeping fidelity to a different version of the character than you enjoy, then that's a matter of taste. It's not a matter of the character, like, being a terrible version of that character. It's just a different version of that character.
All right, if it's not character assassination, then it's character manslaughter.
Superheroes are like a quilt, right? Every patch of a quilt is going to be a slightly different shade. And, like, over time, if you go from the top of the quilt to the bottom of the quilt, it can end up being a completely different color. But you are going to notice with one patch that quilt is green and the rest of the patch are pinks and reds, right? And, like, I think if I'm to respect an adaptation, I have to put it in the same light as I would any other comic. And in the same way that I'm going to hate an event comic, the same way I'm going to hate a normal comic or an Elseworld for getting a character wrong, I'm going to hate a a like adaptation. And I actually disagree with Honey, the idea that like the biggest concern is just, oh, someone will like read a bad comic, because here's my DCAU version, John fucking Stewart, all right? Like, John Stewart for the longest time was like, he is multiple generations Green Lantern, all right? He is like, he fully trumped Kyle Rayner's era. The reason why no one cares about Kyle is because the 2000s made John Stewart important. People complained when he wasn't the Green Lantern in the 2011 movie. People were confused whenever they see Hal Jordan to this day. And it's not John Stewart. It's not. It's not at all. And like, for some reason, no writer can understand John Stewart. And despite the fact that John Stewart is the most popular Green Lantern, despite the fact that John Stewart is like, should be striking when the iron's hot, no one can fucking write John Stewart, because the John Stewart they put on TV was so fucking wrong. And I like John Stewart in the DCAU, but he has permanently kneecapped this character, and not just this one version of this character, not just the comic version, but literally every version of John Stewart that has ever been put to pen or screen doesn't make any fucking sense, because no one knows how to write him anymore, because the one time they adapted him, they took everything original from him.
I will push back on Miranda saying that the adaptations don't matter, because I do think that the adaptations do become, for better or worse, and for me, sometimes for better, because like I said, I love what they did with Poison Ivy's character, right? The adaptations are a latching on point for a lot of fans. For many fans, that's how they get into it. And like I said, the Poison Ivy barely had a real like personality or an ethos to her, really, before she was an eco-terrorist.
Okay, I do want to clarify my point. When I was saying that it doesn't matter in adaptations if it's a different version of the character, I wasn't saying adaptations don't matter. I was saying that fidelity to any specific version of a character doesn't matter, because like it's a different version regardless. I just wanted to clarify that point.
I get it. I think it just matters to me as much as it matters as a comic, because I have to respect. To respect an adaptation, I have to treat it like another piece in the tapestry of the character. I do have an interesting question, because this concept of reimagining did awaken something into me. I am like God's strongest Justice League Gods and Monsters fan, and I don't know why. It's not a great canon, and I think I've brought this up before. But like that whole. Sorry, what were you, son, honey? What?
I just said I like it. I like Dracula, Man, Batman.
Yeah, but like the fact that you used all those words to say that, like, it is so clearly reinterpretation based off of like not these characters, but these concept of these mantles. None of these characters are Diana, Themyscira, Clark Kent, or Bruce Wayne. They're like Val Zod, Kirk Langstrom, and Becca, and even then, they're nothing like those characters either. And my question here is, like, for iconic characters like Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, you have mantles that can do that. But what if we move to characters like the CW? Stay with me here, all right? The CW is doing the same shit with Black Canary. It is taking the concept of Black Canary, a master of martial arts, and just, like, completely like changing every other part of Black Canary. Like they took good at martial arts, they put it on a whiteboard, has blonde hair, and then they made her completely and utterly different.
She wasn't even good at martial arts. In the original first few seasons of the show, she's just a white lawyer. That's all she's just a...
No, you're wrong. The first Black Canary isn't that Black Canary. It's her sister who became an assassin by training... Like Sarah Lance.
And then after her sister died,
I always remember her as the White Canary.
Wildcat.
I always remember her as the White Canary, so I forgot that she was Black
they put on there. Dead relative who was Black Canary first is the third thing they put on. It is good at martial arts, blonde woman, dead relative. Sorry, Miranda, what?
Can I just say, I'm glad that I skipped Arrow and instead got really into Gotham.
I will actually...
Okay.
So this is actually an argument I'm going to be making, is that stories like Gods and Monsters, shows like the CW, shows like Gotham, are actually the best possible direction for adaptations. Because these properties are so removed from any possible original source material that no one is going to read or watch those materials and think, I bet this is what the original character is like.
Then why doesn't Green Arrow have his funny hat anymore? Why doesn't he have his funny hat?
I would like to.
Okay, he doesn't have a funny hat, Rena, because DC is allergic to style.
Okay, Green Arrow was already shot in the pants.
On Miranda's comment, first 1 second. All right, saying you're glad you skipped Arrow and instead got into Gotham is like saying you're glad you skipped smoking a joint and instead smoked meth.
No, but that's the thing. Gotham is so radically different, and everyone is so familiar with the Bat brand as a concept. They know who Mr. Freeze is. They know he's not some whatever the fuck Mr. Freeze was on Gotham. They know he's not that.
I guarantee you.
Okay. Mr. Freeze is the worst example you could have picked up on because, like, I really would argue that they kept so much, like, they kept so true to the core of his character with how Mr. Freeze was handled. No, it's whatever the fuck the Riddler is in the Gotham.
I feel like there's at least one person out there who's like, yeah, the Joker's name should be Jerome. He should have a twin brother.
Okay, I love Jerome. Jerome is amazing.
The Penguin should be... the Penguin and the Riddler's entire strife should be because the Riddler rejected the Penguin's romantic advances.
Yes! That should
you can tell me anything about Gotham, I'd believe you on this.
That's entirely true.
Yeah, that's literally what happened.
Did you know that the Flying Graysons were in Gotham?
Yeah. But yes, no, the Riddler was the Penguin's gay awakening.
Yeah.
Gods and Monsters is here, where literally no one is calling this characterization. You might call it a misunderstanding of those characters, but it's clear they're like reinterpreting it. Mm-hmm. The CW is like maybe here, Gotham is like here. At what point do we start complaining? Like, I think, like, let's say, like, they completely reinterpret Citizen Steel or whatever, right? Like, they only basically take the name.
So, the actual character from Legends of Tomorrow.
I'm gonna say,
yeah, no, I meant farther from that, alright?
What about Batman's best friend, Howard? Alright? They decide to completely reimagine Howard.
They did that in Hush already.
Howard is a character?
Yeah.
Wait, that's the tech guy, right?
Yeah, Howard's character, they completely butcher him in Hush. They have already butchered Howard.
I feel like, didn't they, like, murder him there, too?
Yeah.
Is there no line? Are we really calling out the pitchforks for Howard?
I love Howard. Howard is an amazing character.
Howard is my favorite bat.
He's such a good character.
We need to bring him back.
So there is no line. We're going to complain no matter what. Is that the answer?
Every character is going to have somebody who comes to bat for them.
Yeah, which is why I go to my point. I don't trust comic fans on. Like, there is a line, but, like, you should not be... Okay, Becca fans get to complain about Wonder Woman and Gods and Monsters, but you can't be a Kirk Langstrom fan complaining about his adaptation of Gods and Monsters, but be like, yeah, the CW Arrow is fine.
Favorite and least favorite characterization changes. What is your favorite and what is your least favorite? Rena, you go first.
I'll go with favorite. I don't have a least favorite yet. Favorite, Poison Ivy, clearly. I've already talked about her so much.
My favorite characterization change has to be, I think I'm going to go with Captain Atom. Captain Atom is a character that started in the Charlton era as just generic McGung-ho soldier boy with radiation powers, runs around then. And then DC bought them and put Carrie Bates on writing the series and created one of the most interesting, complete, radical reinventions of the character. And it is probably one of the best characters. I'm going to jump you on this, though, Rena, because I know who you're going to be picking for your least favorite, and I'm going to be picking them first. Carol Ferris.
Damn it. Damn it.
Yeah, I'm stealing it. I'm stealing it from you because you decided to wait. I gave you the first go, and you decided not to.
Go ahead.
Carol Ferris in the Calypso Darkness Within annual for back in the early 90s, is so traumatized by being Star Sapphire that she has actual like PTSD dreams and night terrors from the experience, and needs to just have Hal like just be there in the room with her when she goes to bed so she doesn't collapse. During the 80s, she had so much PTSD from being Star Sapphire, she created a split personality that projected itself to go run around and wreak havoc in Coast City. Then, fucking 2000s, they decide, no. The only interesting thing about Carol is that she dressed in a pink spandex outfit at one point and tried to terrorize Hal Jordan. So we're going to make her entire group now a separate faction in there, driven by love, and she's going to become the poster child face of the organization that gave her so much trauma. And we are never going to address the trauma that she is facing at any of this opportunity.
This is funny because the Carol Ferris mischaracterization I was going to complain about was after the first time that they ruined Star Sapphire, because I miss when the Zamrons hated love. All right, we need to rewind all the way back where Star Sapphire was the embodiment of like, no, ill. Why do you love Green Lantern? You can do so much better. I miss that version of Star Sapphire, and we're never getting it back. We could get Star Sapphire, the traumatizing agent that Carol needs to leave alone. We will never get Star Sapphire, the anti-love crusader, okay?
Star Sapphire, power of love yourself.
Power of...
Miranda, you have one? Actually, I do now have a least favorite, but go.
Okay, so favorite wild characterization change. Least favorite. Okay, least favorite I can definitely do. I'm actually not a fan of like how the Mad Hatter was changed, right? So in the 60s TV show, like, so he did have to be fair, he did have like a golden age appearance in Batman where he was just like a random thief, right? But like the first real version of his character as like a reoccurring character, right, was like the 1960s TV show version where he was just a dude that was like super into headwear. It was like Pete Camp. Right? And then all of a sudden in the 80s, we've got the mind control, we've got the obsession with like Lewis Carroll. Well, and I'm just like, it's fine. It's fine to bring back a gimmicky character, but it's just like, he had like a motivation, and then we just kind of went off the walls into like in favor of some very unsavory things.
Let's give that Mad Hatter a 6-issue mini where he fights the other Mad Hatter.
The way they explained it is actually a completely different character.
Yeah, they're
technically different characters. So
yeah, they're two different characters now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was a guy. So the Golden Age appearance of the Mad Hatter is theoretically like our version of the Mad Hatter. And then while he was in jail after that first initial heist, just a rando dude stole his like stick. Who was super obsessed with headwear and wanted to steal Batman's cowl.
I mean, it would suck in Gotham to like have a shtick and then find out that some dude did one heist with it, and it's like, damn, man, like, what other hat pun themed like name could I possibly do if the Mad Hatter is taken? Like, the Hatterist? Like, no. That Hatter? Like, hater? Like, no. Like,
what's
That's his teenage sidekick.
What's your least favorite night?
So my least favorite is how they have sanded the edges off of Nightwing. It is very much that he has that in the past few years he has lost a lot of the soap opera nonsense that like even the Tim Seeley run at the beginning of Rebirth really had in spades. You know, like this is a man who has a messy dating life, and like should have a messy dating life. You know, like he is a serial monogamist. One girl breaks up with him, and they get in, and then she's coming back to like make things right, to say, "Hey, I forgive you. I'm sorry about all this," and he's in bed with another woman immediately.
But Rena, you did not give us your favorite.
I didn't give you my least favorite either. I was just dogpiling on the Carol Ferris trade. Here's the thing: my favorite in DC is like. I think personally, it's two. One is I just really like how we've completely 180'd Icon. from being like this conservative to like who has character development to, in the Milestones Returns being much more like not that, much more like aware of things, which like I don't love in itself, but it's because I view Milestones are fully a different character, and I like that reinterpretation of like a person who's been here for a century and has been full of humanity rather than kind of tuned out. I think that's a fun thing to go about. But the actual favorite for me is Rebirth. I mentioned this before, Wonder Woman and and Steve Trevor, and how their relationship fell apart. Because I think this like recontextualization of they care about each other but they don't love each other, it does wonders to mend the problems with their relationship, like their ups and downs, to be like, yeah, they care. It's something brave that like no other real relationship does, where it's a very binary on or off, where it's like either they're not together like Batman and Catwoman, or they're meant to be together, like Superman and Lois Lane. And instead, that we have this interesting, we will always care about each other, but we literally like love died and our relationship didn't change, and that says something about us.
Yeah.
My least favorite is a three-way tie between every Green Lantern. The three main. Why did we make Hal an extreme fuck up, like from moderate fuck up to extreme fuck up? Why did we make John an uninteresting magical Negro? I said it. And why did Guy suddenly become a misogynist? Because I miss Teacher Guy, all right? And I get everyone's like, oh, he's so great in JLI. I like the one random story in the What If Guy was a Green Lantern where he stops a warring planet of children by being like a normal good teacher. But if I had to choose one among all others, my God, give John back his personality. Give me the Green Lantern that was beefing with cops, all right? Like, Miranda, do you remember your favorite or no?
Yes. So I do have my favorite radical shift. Okay, I'm gonna get flack for this. It's fine. What does my reputation matter? I'm actually like a really big fan of like the Teen Titans TV show version of Starfire. It's mostly for personal reasons, right? Like where she has that entire monologue about how her powers come from like how she utilizes her emotions as someone who, still has trouble with emotional regulation. Like that really spoke to me, and the fact that she was never in the wrong for having strong emotions was very important to me, and I recognize that isn't necessarily original with like OG Starfire.
All right. I know that Amanda Waller's characterization of late as a villain in particular has not been popular with fans of Amanda Waller, of the Suicide Squad. However, I remember seeing someone say that James Gunn is kind of the reason for this, in particular her characterization in the Suicide Squad movie. So I do not think it is the case. I think it is the case that we are looking back at what the Suicide Squad represents and realizing that it does not exist without the prison industrial complex. It is a thing that only works in an environment of institutionalized harm. Right? It is only a thing that works when you are forcing other people to risk their lives with a threat to their lives as the leash. I think it's created a system which is bad, and we're kind of reacting to that.
I heavily disagree. Amanda Waller is amazing in the original Suicide Squad run because so much of what she's done gets dramatically flanderized in later things. Oh, she puts bombs in people's heads? No, in the original comic, she puts a bomb around their arm. They don't die most of the time. It's just severe injury. But also, the bomb is only in place while they're on active duty. They are voluntarily given a contract to sign that reduces their prison sentence. They only get go on to there when they agree to it. They are given an on-site counselor to make sure that they're all doing okay on the job and doing everything. Everything is done as much by the book as it possibly can on there. And Amanda Waller is not a representative of the established order. She is somebody who's like from the lowest possible privilege bracket you could possibly find, of a widowed single mother who grew up in the projects, who only got a college degree after her own daughter did, and rose to the ranks of an active military operation in order to help her own people, and use that to take down an actual white supremacist operation in the United States against the orders of her. Like, everything about Waller in the original Suicide Squad run is a hero. It's just that she does. She's not exactly nice or clean about how she does it. So people kind of give her the wrong look in the original run. But she's unequivocally a hero in the '80s. Like,
Giant Knight, before you jump in, I want to say something. For full disclosure, never read Suicide Squad book. Weirdly enough, Honey convinced me more of Knight's point after this, because I think no one is trying to take that original, or at least I don't think Knight's trying to take the original run. The characterization of that makes sense for the context of the run, and I think maybe choosing Amanda Waller was an unfortunate choice. But in Knight's view, argument is like, if you are reflecting on the prison-industrial complex, you can't have Waller be that kind of person, and that's weird. So Waller serves a purpose in the original run, and as a reflection of the prison industrial complex, she becomes the establishment to say, no, someone like Waller in the original run isn't running the show, someone like this is running the show. And all those exaggerations, all those problems is to try and show how there's no version of the Suicide Squad that isn't fucked up. At least I think that's what Knight is getting at here.
Yeah. Like, we don't have a version of the Suicide Squad in our real lives, right? At all. And thank God, right? But the closest we do have...
We kind of do, because we do have, we have incarcerated firefighters who've had California wildfires.
Yeah.
Literally about to say it. What we do have is incarcerated firefighters who are heroes, who are doing a good job, but also are ineligible to use that experience to get jobs as firefighters outside of prison, who are forced into a very dangerous job. Like, everything that has happened with Amanda Waller feels like a natural escalation of the costs which she has given up for the greater good, until you become a greater evil.
I feel like that argument ultimately comes down to that the people who say that, like you, want Amanda Waller to represent the greater evil, want her to basically don't want this morally good, morally neutral, complicated version of the character to exist, because it, like, I feel like it makes the matter more realistic to have somebody who is actively fighting. Because the thing is, in the original Suicide Squad run, there are corrupt, horrible politicians and operatives trying to use the squad for their own thing, and do treat the Suicide Squad as their own personal hit squad that they can just throw at the problem and hope it goes away. There's a literal situation where a senator tries to just use it to solve an international incident with Russia and nearly cause this World War III because he went over her head over the matter. There are characters and people you could be using to represent the prison industrial complex. That's not Amanda Waller.
But, like, so I think Amanda Waller, at my exposure to her is from, like, events and bullshit. There was a point in which Amanda Waller could have moved away from the squad, but as long as Amanda Waller is leading the squad, she cannot be that morally neutral and great thing, because, like, the fact of the matter is, if the Suicide Squad is an exaggeration of our prison industrial complex, which it is currently depicted as in modern day, there's no version of that has that morally gray Amanda Waller in it.
Yeah.
After how long do you consider the changes made to a character to be permanent?
Because it is a collaborative medium, right? I think largely it's when other writers latch onto that and decide to take it for themselves, right? Um, to give an example of where it didn't happen for a good thing, right? The infamous Hal Jordan teeny bopper Green Lantern, which I don't want to go too far into, right? Romance, which was written by a creep, and which only existed for about a year, and then and as you're quick to point out, she only gets a page in like every other book after that guy stops writing it, and then they break up. You know, where it's like that was clearly the other writers being like, I'm not comfortable with this. Let's just not do that.
Yeah.
And then they kind of just they kept with it for a little bit, and then they're like, now we're gonna phase it out.
Yeah, they had like 6 issues where she was in there, but these were 6 issues where they only had like 8 pages to Hal Jordan the entire time, and of those 8 pages, 1 of those pages featured Aricia, so it was like 2 actual issues worth of comics, and she had like 6 pages of on-screen time.
Yeah. So like, unfortunately, like a lot of the fandom or the hatedom for Hal Jordan loves to latch onto that, but as you pointed out, it's really not a thing that gets brought up by other writers.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, hate Hal Jordan for better reasons. Hate him for how he constantly gets hit on the head, you know?
Yeah.
The many concussions of Hal Jordan.
I think for me it's an inversely proportional thing, where the more drastic it is, the less time you have to fix it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
If you do a complete and total reinterpretation. So I think a good example of this is Talia. Like, Grant Morrison ruined Dahlia, and we're still working to fix her. And we're, like, slowly but surely getting there. But the problem is that the thing that Grant Morrison did to Talia was making her a sex criminal. And therefore, it is, like, difficult to, like, make her look better.
I mean, like, in the case of Talia, the New 52 really did work in their favor there, because they were very quick to remove that specific element, and then they spent the rest of the New 52 like unable to make up their minds whether or not she was a bad mother.
I feel like Scott Snyder at the very least had a very clear idea that she was a bad mother because of all the stuff she did during Batman Incorporated.
The huge issue with Talia is, like, if you were to write Talia in character to how she was pre-Grant, Damian wouldn't be a character.
Here's the thing, like, what Grant Morrison did with Talia's character was absolutely based on the person's own understandings of consent, which, like having done the research, I'm not convinced that Grant Morrison actually can define consent. Like, that's not a joke, that's not a pithy comment. Like, I think that, like, Grant Morrison's idea of what consent means when it comes to sexual intercourse comes from, like, 20 years ago, and that's unfortunate. But, like, I do think that, like, a lot of what Grant Morrison did to Talia as a character was very much motivated by like the way that they orientalize and the way that they fetishize characters from other cultures, from the way that they tend to write female characters, right? Like, having read more Grant Morrison than I want to have, like, how they wrote Talia is not out of line with how they write like other women of color.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole thing with that is, like, that was just the moment Grant Morrison gets put on that book and wants to do something with Talia al Ghul, it was inevitable that was going to happen.
At this point, we're coming to a very close end, so I'm going to wrap things up. All right, so who among us do we think? I'm going to go first. My money is on Miranda. I've been saying it from the very beginning. I think you're the Bizarro this episode.
I also think it's Miranda.
I hadn't been thinking it's Miranda until everyone else was betting it's Miranda, and I'm just like, but
it could be wrong. You don't know.
Like,
I haven't been the Bizarro in any of the episodes so far. It could be me.
I don't think we have a Bizarro today.
I think Rena's the Bizarro.
All right.
All right. Now, will the real Bizarro please stand up? Will the real Bizarro please stand up?
It was me.
I knew it.
So I want to clarify. Pretty much everything I said, except for the conversation about Talia, was just me bullshitting.
Yep, I knew it. I knew it. No one can defend adaptations that hard.
I was having so much fun.
So, like, I think the adaptation thing was, like, yeah, I could buy Miranda being, like, so deep that, like, she doesn't care. But, one, Miranda made so many pauses and, like, clearly was, like, waiting to, like, find things to say. But
I thought she was doing that because of all the technical difficulties.
I don't think mischaracterization is a thing. Is a wild take to have.
Yeah.
Alright, I said from the start of this project that when I'm Bizarro, I'm just gonna be like I'm just gonna come up with the most unhinged opinions I can.
Like, I think if it, like, part of it being so nuanced is if it wasn't for the fact that statistically having two, like, times in a row no one being a Bizarro is, like, nearly impossible, I wouldn't have assumed it was Miranda. But the fact that that would be 8, like, times, like, because we roll a d6 for this, guys, like, 8 times and not a single one came up, it's like, it's not honestly that rare, but it is, like, unlikely to me. So I was like, yeah, someone probably has to be Bizarro just statistically, and of that, it's definitely Miranda. Especially because I know Knight and Honey's actual opinion, because, like, we
don't shut up.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like, here's the thing. A little bit of making the sausage here. We don't just, like, say what the topic is and then peace out for a week or a month. Like, we have to...
No, we're incapable of that. We like to talk.
When we pitch the topic, Honey and Honey and Knight almost at that moment got into an argument about Amanda Waller. Like...
I picked that topic and immediately said, I know it's going to cause a fight between me and Honey about Amanda Waller.
Question here, Rena, did you honestly think I was the Bizarro, or did you just try and...
No, I just needed to say something. Okay, so my actual opinion...
Were your favorites and least favorites at least correct?
No, all of that was bullshit. I bullshitted everything. The only moment I was sincere this entire time was talking about Talia, because, like, I popped on, like, my friendly neighborhood amateur Batman historian hat.
Okay. Start with that one, then. What's your favorite and least favorites?
Okay, so my favorite is Harvey Dent, because he just goes from, like, you know, just a random crook driven mad by being ugly to all of a sudden having this very personal relationship with Batman, and, right, and, like, this idea of, like, of the DA, right, like, the district attorney whose crusades so hard for Gotham that he just cracked, right? Like, I love Harvey Dent, and I really love the current iteration, which is so far removed from the original.
That makes sense. Miranda's talked about this before.
Yes, I have. I adore Harvey. And then I would say, like, my least favorite, like, huge characterization change, it's Tim Drake in the New 52. I hate it. The bane of my existence. It is my enemy. I have gotten into so many fights online because of the New 52 version of Tim Drake.
I like the New 52 Tim Drake exclusively because he decided not to step on Jason Todd's grave and just immediately became Red Robin instead of becoming Robin.
I hate it because it's such a misunderstanding of why he became Robin.
I like the wings. I like that.
Oh, the wings are so good.
The wings are glorious.
Yeah, I love the wings.
My actual opinion on like mischaracterization is I think that I don't believe in mischaracterization if it is the agreed upon version of the character for the era in which it is being written, right? So, for example, like the version of the character that exists in the 80s is the 80s version of that character, and sometimes those are drastically different than the 90s. That doesn't make the 90s invalid to me. I think that especially when you have characters that are, like, this version of them is being agreed upon by more than, like, 3 people in, like, that era in which it is being written. Anyway, sorry, I just really needed to put that in there so that people don't think I'm insane. Alright, but, one little question. What is one complete mischaracterization that you secretly love, even though it will never and should never make it into, like, the main characterization for them?
So, like, either one that has happened or one we would want.
Either. Your dealer's choice.
I'm going to immediately wreck everyone's opinion of me and just like, no one is going to respect my opinion after this. Asbat.
Hmm?
What? I think I misheard you.
All-Star Batman.
Oh.
No, the rats.
Yeah, the rats, the paint myself entirely yellow to say fuck you to Hal Jordan, uses the R slur Batman, that Batman. I love...
Beef with a 9-year-old Batman.
Yes.
Oh, Batman, listen, he should always beef with 9-year-olds. That's fair.
That, Asbat is so bad. But he's
Is that the one that made Robin eat rats?
Yes! He's so fun for how bad he is. It's just, there's just so many lengths he goes, and you just, honestly, I kind of wanted the run to just keep going so we can just see how bad we can make this Batman.
The moment I found out that Dick Grayson at one point wrote comic books, I was like, oh, he wrote All-Star Batman and Robin. That is his fan fiction of what it was like to grow up under Bruce.
I don't know what's funnier, if that was his actual interpretation or he's just writing it to fuck with Bruce. Like,
I love that it is an actual prequel to The Dark Knight Returns, because it actually does make sense that the Dick Grayson who was raised by Bruce Wayne in All-Star Batman would grow up to become the psycho villain in Dark Knight Returns.
It also makes sense that a guy that would make a 9-year-old eat a rat would grow up to be the Dark Knight Returns.
Exactly!
anyone, Knight, do you have an answer?
Yes, and it's going to make a lot of your friends hate me.
What? Oh, no.
I really like Strange Adventure, okay? Like I said, once again, I think as a deconstruction of that genre of the John Carter of Mars type character, I think it works. I will say this, everyone is like, oh, you see, the theme is that one man's hero is another man's terrorist. I'm like, no. The real theme is that war costs your soul. In order to win one war, he had to give up everything that mattered to him. He had to actually be the worst.
Yeah, and I feel like that moral and methodology would work a lot better with Captain Comet, who has actually done some pretty shitty stuff in the actual comics.
Yeah, but he's not as
Probably true, but I have no idea who that is.
Exactly. That's
Captain Comet is a lesser-known character. He's basically Superman in space, where he's like this super ultra-powerful cosmic alien superhero guy who shoots energy blasts out of his hands. He's fun, but he has a habit of accidentally becoming a villain in other people's books because he doesn't know what heroes actually look like on Earth, so he mistakes supervillains for heroes and superheroes for villains.
I'm actually a pretty big fan of the Gift universe, right? So when Booster Gold tries to It's a Wonderful Life like Bruce Wayne, and then everybody in that universe is just somehow the worst version of themselves. The introduction to that world has Hal Jordan in it. Like, Booster Gold's having a conversation with Hal Jordan, and Hal Jordan proves how strong-willed he is by using his ring to kill himself, and then Booster Gold is just like, yes! Mission accomplished!
It's so bad. It's so bad.
Jason Todd unwittingly murders dozens of children, and he's just jazzed about it.
Yeah, I'm the person here who likes All-Star Batman, and I still hate that version of the fucking story.
Oh, it's like every single character was sat down and asked, like, you know, what's the worst thing you could possibly be, right? Like, imagine a nightmare scenario about yourself. What would it be? And then, like, you know, they're just like, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'd be Batman, but with guns. Or, you know, what if I was just like a piece of shit on Shark Tank that like didn't give a shit about electrocuting children?
I love that this was actually the beginning of mine and Miranda's friendship. Is that I came into her comments to ask what she thought of the Gift universe, and then she read it, to make comments on it.
That series happened. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I draw the line at Duke Thomas. That interpretation.
That was fast.
Fun. Like that. That's unfair, Duke. He doesn't even get like a fun anything. It's just
neither do any of the girls.
Duke doesn't get any fun anytime. They just give him superpowers.
Like, honestly, the fact that they put Duke Thomas in that story at all is very surprising, given we don't even have Barbara Gordon in it.
Wow. I just think Barbara Gordon turned out the same. Like, exactly the same. Maybe didn't get oracled.
No, she lost the use of her arms instead of her legs, so now she's just leaping off the rooftops as the armless Batgirl.
Y'all are talking at the same exact time.
Sorry.
Night first, then honey. Alright?
She's the only one whose life is at all better. She's just a congresswoman.
Right.
No, my thing is that, no, instead of losing the use of her legs, she loses the use of her arms, so now she's just running around Gotham as the armless Batgirl.
Oh, I was just gonna think, like, she just stayed a librarian, like it was the full-on, where she has, like, her hair up and, like, the coils on her head.
3 different versions. My pitch for the one I want to see is, I mentioned it before, I really like the Batman from Justice League Gods and Monsters. Not from the movie. The movie, he's the most boring motherfucker ever. But from the tie-in comics, he's a homoerotic vampire, and I love it. I love it so much.
Gods and Monsters now.
Yeah,
you should only read the Batman sections. Everything else is like, it gets decreasing returns. Like, the Superman is like, whatever, and the Wonder Woman's like, yeah, man, I really love Wonder Woman having, meaningless sex because of the Cuban Missile Crisis, and then being inspired to become a hippie because of the Kennedy assassination, and crying over Kennedy. But I love it so much. But I do have to say, the other one is Stan Lee's Just Imagine Superman, but not.
Oh god, those are terrible.
But not that actual version. I didn't read that book.
I actually really like his Batman premise.
Stan Lee's, no, but specifically the version, I like that too. The version, but that's like one that could actually become canon and be cool. The version of him in the Stan Lee 100th birthday, like annual, where like they check in on all of them, because so Stan Lee's Superman's motivation is he becomes a superhero because if he stops crime, then if he stops crime and war, then the governments of the world will stop wasting so much money fighting it and put that money towards their space program so he can get back home. And so the Jimmy Olsen of that universe is like, there's no way that's going to work. It's so complicated. And so what that Superman realizes is like, oh, okay. And then they adapt a bit of Action Comics #2, where he takes like a war profiting defense contractor and throws him in the middle of a war zone to scare him to like change his ways. And then once he's like, okay, I give, and he goes back and he's like, Superman, you can't, this isn't going to work. They'll just replace me with another CEO. You would have to do this so many times. And Superman just has a smile on his face about it. So the version of Superman.
Where they got the idea for Iron Man movie? For the Iron Man movie?
No, this is like recently. So
Okay, I was like, oh my god, because that's what that inspired.
Like, I like the idea of this Superman whose version of crime fighting is just like scaring the shit out of billionaires and like elected officials. It's terrible, and it only works because this Superman's like very like grounded in terms of his power set. He's not like invincible, and because like if Clark did that, that's called a demagogue. But like this Superman, I'm like, okay, sure, scare more billionaires, please.
I mean, that is one hell of a wish fulfillment.
I've been Honey. I'm the host of the show. You can find me on Twitter at honeyham17. Otherwise, I'm just here on the YouTube channel at this point. How else can they find the rest of you, Miranda?
Oh, I'm DinoMightyMiranda on TikTok, Dinos and Dinosaur. Mighty is in Mighty Mouse Miranda. That's my name. Don't wear it out. I am also on the Sidekicks podcast. That is Side as in Dark Side. Me and a friend, we talk about comic books. Knight, where can the people find you?
I'm Knight the Werewolf Teacher, and you can find me at Werewolf Teacher on TikTok, Threads, and Instagram, as well as Tumblr. Rena, where can they find you?
You can find me on TikTok as Rock R Free. There's no S. The S was taken. And also here, where I make other videos of the channel. But also every Saturday I stream on the Ash and the Fantastic Friends live stream, 9 p.m. EST. We go pretty late, but you can drop in and leave. And there's also VODs. So go check it out. Ash Danger on YouTube and Twitch. Also, me and Miranda stream every other Sunday, where we view the history of comics through the perspective of Green Lantern and Batman. I don't know why I pointed. You kind of could have guessed who does who.
Also, we'll be
It's a mystery.
quite a few more different videos the coming weeks. We'll be starting a backup series where we talk about smaller concepts of the video that doesn't get warranted a tangent on this subject matter, as well as a reading recommendation section, as well as personalized video essays that each of us might be doing every now and then. So, come and join us, subscribe to the channel, and follow us on all our various social media platforms.